that we live in a patriarchy. Really? Oh yeah. I mean, all the facts to the contrary, yeah? Yeah, you start looking at the facts and looking at the reality that surrounds us, and you're going to realize pretty instantly that we don't live in a patriarchy. We live in a matriarchy. How can you tell when one group of people is privileged over another? Well, you can look at the averages in the different areas of social life, right? Look at the criminal justice system. Yeah. What happens with a man and a woman who commit the same crime? Say fraud. Fraud being a non-violent crime, presumably, right? What's the sentence for a man on average and the sentence for a woman on average? Well, would it surprise you for me to tell you that on average, women get a sentence that is 60% less than the men's? Yeah, that's the case in every crime. In point of fact, there are some countries, I think that this is happening in the UK. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. It seems that, I think it's the UK, that is advocating the elimination of prison for women. Yeah. Women, whatsoever their crime, would not go to jail. So if they murder you, they'll get a suspended sentence and be able to go home by dinner time. Yeah. Isn't that great? Well, in the justice system, for a fact, women get less of a sentence. It turns out that women and men have roughly equal percentage chances of getting prostate cancer and breast cancer. Prostate cancer, of course, being a malady that can only afflict men, and breast cancer being a malady that principally affects women. Yeah, but not exclusively. But be that as it may, they are affected in roughly equal measure, and yet breast cancer research gets 10 times more funding than prostate cancer research. Look it up if you don't believe me. Oh, what about the pay gap, you say? The pay gap, the pay gap, the pay gap. Women get, 70 cents on the dollar that men earn. Well, that's so much bullshit, because you start looking at the actual data, right? And it's for all jobs. And you see there are a whole host of jobs that women don't want to participate in, that are very lucrative, but women just don't want to do. Like, for instance, oil rig worker. Yeah, they just don't want to do that. And instead, they go into professions that have lower remuneration because they prefer them. Like, for instance, nursing. See, in countries like Finland and Sweden and Norway, countries where, the whole society bends over backwards to provide women with all the opportunities in the world insofar as going into the sciences and STEM and higher paying fields and what have you. Well, women there in those countries prefer to go into those professions that are stereotypically female, such as teaching, such as nursing. Yeah? And those jobs pay less money. Why? Because you don't have to be so educated as if you go into a STEM field, and you don't have to work so hard, quite frankly. You can afford to be a part-time worker as a teacher or as a nurse, right? But in the higher paying jobs, you can't. So of course, if the women are only going for the easy jobs, the part-time jobs, the jobs that aren't that difficult, and you average all the salaries, yeah, of course women are going to be earning less. But you start looking at the nitty-gritty. How much does a female lawyer earn compared to a male lawyer? It's pretty much 1-to-1. And in some cases, believe it or not, some cases, as of late, the research is showing that women earn more, because there's more of a demand for the women in those jobs, especially in STEM fields, because there are so few, and the companies hiring don't want to look like they are discriminating against women, so they prioritize women and give them a better salary than the men. But it goes beyond the statistics in the criminal justice system. It goes beyond the statistics in the workforce. It goes to the whole society, because if you notice, as of late, the way women are treated, they are treated like these little delicate flowers. These little delicate flowers, and that anything that they say is automatically believed, no matter how absurd. Yeah, take Christine Blasey Ford and the whole Kavanaugh confirmation hearing shit, right? Well, the woman was clearly lying. Everybody knew that. And yet, all of the senators there in that committee, especially the male senators I'm talking about, right? They treated her with kid gloves as if she were this delicate flower, this little crystal vase that if you just looked at it the wrong way, it would shatter into a million pieces right then and there in the Senate chamber. I know, she's a grown woman, an adult woman. She should have been pressed. She should have been, she should have been like poked. Like people should have been asking her, what the hell are you talking about? You're talking about something that happened 30 years ago. How is it possible that you have all these recollections and you don't know the basic facts of like how you got there and how you got home? I mean, if you were raped or sexually assaulted by this man 35 years ago, how is it that you just magicked yourself there in the first place and then magicked yourself back home? These questions, which are reasonable questions that any man making similar allegations would be obliged to answer, well, Christine Blasey Ford, she skated away scot-free from these hard-hitting, skeptical questions because it would have been sexist. It would have been sexist to question her. Yeah, that's what people were saying at the time. I was there. I remember. You remember too. Anytime anybody was slightly skeptical about her story, they were automatically labeled as a misogynist. They were automatically labeled as an awful human being, just for asking basic questions that any witness, were he a man, would be asked. I'm focusing on the whole Blasey Ford situation because it's endemic in every situation in our current society. A woman's word is taken as if it were straight from God. Yeah, she cannot lie. It is inconceivable for a woman to lie. Yeah, all evidence to the contrary, of course. All historical evidence to the contrary. I mean, read the Bible for crying out loud, huh? Bathsheba, Lot's wife, all these people in the Bible, right? They lied because people lie. But today, in this matriarchy where we're living in, oh no, women don't lie. Everything they say is the truth by definition. Yeah, just because they're a woman, everything they say has to be taken as gospel. Everything that they say has to be taken as if it's, well, the word of God, which is absurd. But that's the situation we're living in because we're living in a matriarchy. We're living in a world, an environment. We are living in a society where a woman is beyond perfect. And it's not just a woman or some women, it's all women. And what does that mean? What does it mean when there is one class of people who get more benefits than other people, whose words and testimony carries more weight simply by the fact of who they are? What do you call this society that acts in such a way that grants one particular class of people higher status than everybody else? Huh? You know what you call it? You call it an aristocracy. Yeah. And if an aristocracy is based on the sex of the person, then you call it either patriarchy or matriarchy, because there are only two sexes. And so if the men, they get the shittier jobs, they live less, they are given, longer prison sentences, less research for healthcare, if their word is treated with skepticism, well then obviously it's not a patriarchy, now is it? It's a matriarchy. Now I've been thinking about this quite some time because when I was growing up, a woman was treated much more like a man. Much more equally. There wasn't this sense that she was some sort of aristocrat, right? There wasn't the sense that she was untouchable. When I was growing up in the 70s and the 80s and even the 90s, a woman's word was not taken as gospel. There was an effort for things to be equitable. And if a woman said something absurd, it was questioned. It was questioned skeptically. And not only that, see, here's a key issue, see. In the 70s, a woman was treated as if she were more solid, stronger. Because look around today. I can't quantify what I'm about to say, but you can see it. You can see how women are treated like like I said before, like they are glass vases, like they are these delicate flowers, these little dandelions that a stiff breeze will shatter them and destroy them, right? That's how they are treated today. But this was not the case. Women were treated as if they were more robust when I was growing up. They were treated like human beings, not like an aristocracy. And I've thought long and hard as to where this comes from, and I think I know where the origin of this problem lies. It lies with the deregulation of the sexual marketplace. Yeah, because what you have now is that, for all intents and purposes, you have 80% of the women chasing after the top 20% of the men. And the bottom 80% of the men, they have nothing. They have very few sexual opportunities, if any at all. Yeah? And so these bottom 80% of the men, who are distributed evenly throughout the socioeconomic hierarchy and the political and judiciary hierarchy, right? Because there are guys who are very low status who are great with girls, guys at very high status who are lousy with girls. You see what I'm saying? Anyway, these guys, these disenfranchised males, because they are disenfranchised, they have grown accustomed to being essentially beta orbiters. They are beta orbiters who always defer to Milady. They defer to her because they are trying to curry favor with her. And so when they are in positions of authority, they tend to turn a blind eye to women. They tend to defer to the women. They tend to do whatever it is necessary to appease the women, which was not the case back in the past when the sexual marketplace was more strictly regulated. In the past, since the vast majority of men, 80% of men, wound up with a woman, and most women were pressured principally by their own mothers and by their group of friends into settling down and finding the right guy, a nice guy, a good guy, a decent guy, right? Well, what happened was that most men at all levels of society, especially at the leadership classes, right, they had a sexual partner, a wife, and more to the point, they knew what women were like because they were living with one, and they weren't chasing after the approval of a woman because they had one, and they knew what women were like because they lived with one. And so that way they were more likely to not buy any bullshit that a woman was saying because they recognized that women lie. And more to the point, they weren't trying to curry favor with women. It wasn't their knee-jerk response. Because that's a key issue with these beta orbiters who are in positions of power. They want to curry favor with women because they don't have any women in their lives, right? Or they have been socialized, as is obvious, to defer to women. Because, a woman's always right, a woman would never lie, and all this kind of bullshit, and Me Too, and all this political pressure. And so what happens is that, men as a sex, as a species practically, right, especially at the higher levels, are willing to give women whatever they want to appease them to the detriment of their own sex. And that's how we have the matriarchy. Yeah, because you see, it's women organized in pressure groups, i.e. feminism, who are pressuring men at a higher social status, higher up in the, not just the socioeconomic ladder, but in positions of power and leadership in the society. The feminists are pressuring these guys and pressuring them insistently. And these guys want to curry favor with them, and so they cave. And you could argue that it actually is a patriarchy, but the men at the top, the patriarchs, have pussied out. Well, okay, you could say that, but the effect ultimately is the same. See, women get a better deal than men. And men are fucked. And how will this continue, or how will this change, or what's the future hold for us? Well, we men, this is not going to change. And in point of fact, it's going to get worse. Yeah, because what's been going on with the deregulation of the sexual marketplace is that, see, at one point it was the top 20% of guys who were getting all of the girls, who were getting the attention and attraction of all of the girls, right? But that group is actually being reduced. Women are getting pickier. They are expecting, demanding Not merely the top fifth of the men. No, they want the top 10%. And sometimes some of these women who are 5s and 4s on a 10 scale, insist on getting the guys who are 9s and 10s on a 10 scale, right? And because this is happening, you are having even more men who are without sexual opportunity. And because they have less sexual opportunity, what's happening is that they are, on the one hand, becoming more and more resentful of the situation, and on the other, they are trying more and more to appease women and give them more. Because haven't you noticed that, see, most women, especially the guys who are betas, the guys who can't get pussy, right? They're the ones who are just capitulating to every demand that women make, that women feminists, that the organized pressure groups that are looking out for women's best interests, or not looking out for women's best interests, no, who are advocating for women or using women as the excuse to get power, well, they are capitulating more and more to them. You know, it's not just Me Too. It's soon enough, it's going to be an issue that, you know, a woman's word will be taken as true, irrespective of the facts. I mean, come on, like I said, we are seeing a case where at least one country is seriously considering the idea of eliminating prison sentences for women just because they happen to be women, which is crazy, right? But it will happen that a woman's word in court will be taken as absolutely true. And, you know, they will disallow any testimony or evidence that contradicts her word. In point of fact, some measures have already been tried out, tested out. The notion that a woman who accuses a man of sexual assault by definition cannot be lying, and that a prosecutor cannot question her for that, which is crazy. Because of course women lie about sexual assault. Of course women lie about all sorts of things for various reasons of their own. Yeah, but the thing is, see, the men are capitulating because the women as a sex are, and in this deregulated sexual marketplace, this sexual free-for-all, where a man and where a woman can have as much sex as she wants, and therefore is only aiming for the top, for the best guys, the guys who are 9s and 10s on a 10 scale, right? That pressure makes guys cave, makes the guys lower on the sexual totem pole cave. See, that's what's going on, and it's going to continue, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse until we hit the revolution, okay? And when the revolution happens, well, the fun days for women will be over.